Hey guys, okay, so I'm going to go through the answers to these questions. You should have already done them, but I want to make sure that you actually understand why each answer is what it is. Okay, so Beth had to buy a new shirt and she paid $35 and she borrowed that from her mom. So that's a negative. If she borrows, it's negative. She makes $15 dog sitting, so together she really owes $20 still. Okay, for this one, if we have -4 times the quantity of 2 plus 3, we can use order of operations to do 2 plus 3 and get 5, and take -4 times 5 and get -20. So this answer right here is -20, so it works. And this answer right here is -4 times 5, which was what we simplified using order of operations, so that one works. This one's 1, so we clearly know that that is not the right answer. So let's mark that one off. -5, not the right answer. -5, not the right answer. Okay, this one is a -8 plus 3 equals a -5, so that's not the right answer. And -8 plus 12 equals 4, so that's not the right answer. Okay, so we've got -8 plus a -12. If you distributed the -4 to 2, you'd get -8, and if you distributed the -4 to the 3, you'd get -12. So, and that equals -20, which is the answer to this one, so it works. Okay, number 3. We want to change a -4 2/3 to a decimal. So if we change this to a decimal, we would get 2/3 is 6/10 repeating. Why? Because 3 does not go into 2 evenly, so we put our decimal point here. 0 times 3 is 0, so we need a 0 here. 3 goes into 20 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18, and we'd be left with 2. And that's going to form a 20 again. So 3 would go in 6 times, and it's going to repeat over and over again. So that's why it's a repeating decimal. A submarine hovers 230 yards below sea level. So that's a -230. It ascends 40 yards. So that means it goes up 40, so positive. And then it descends 260, which means it goes down 260. So I can use the commutative property to change the order. I'm going to switch these two using the commutative property. And that's of addition. So now I can add all the negatives together first and get -490 plus my +40. These are different signs, so I keep the sign of the bigger, this one right here, and I subtract 40 from 90 and I get 50, and so it's a -450 yards. Labels are important. All right, so for this one, on the test, we're going to make sure that we tell you which one we want you to use, like distributive or inverse or identity or commutative or associative. We're going to tell you which one to use. But in this one, I'm just going to show you. Okay, so for this one, I want you to use the distributive property first, which means 3 times -2 is -6. 3 times 5 is 15. So now we see, ooh, this number and this number could be added together and make my life easier. We're going to commute them. So we're going to use the commutative property. And there we're going to say, oh, these are inverses, so they make 0. So the inverse property allows me to do that. And then the identity property is the one that allows me to add 0 to any number and get itself. Over here, because there's grouping symbols, we're regrouping them. It's the associative property. So when we regroup them, we again see the inverse property and then again the identity property. Okay, for number 6, we would want to use the commutative property because these are both negatives, and that would give us a -4 plus 4.5 equals 5/10. So first I need to explain and then solve. I'm going to say it's easier to switch the order so I can add the negatives first and use the commutative property of addition, which allows me to do this. All right, for this one, these are both negatives. See this negative? This subtract sign is really a negative sign. So it's the same thing. We've talked about that in class a couple times, that a subtract is a negative. So if I have a -1.5 minus 1.5, I have -3. So that's where I plotted A at -3. If I have -1.5 minus a -2, that's a not, so I'm adding 2 and I get a half. That's B. If I have a -1.5 plus 1.5, those are inverses, so that's 0, and I plot that one for C. And then a -1.5 plus a -2 is a -3.5, or D. So I plot that one at 3.5, but it's negative. All right, for this one, I'm going to add them because I'm switching this. This is an opposite of a negative or a not. So I add these together and I get 2 3/4 because I have to change this denominator. To divide, I have to make him improper or 11/4 and then keep, switch, flip. Okay, so I'm switching it to a multiplication. I flip it over. So I'm left with a negative 11/3, which I have to change into a mixed number, negative 3 2/3. Okay, Jenna's got $42 in her banking account. She spends $66 on jeans, and her parents give her $12. So these are positives, the 42 and the 12, which make 54, but I have more negatives than positives, so she's still in debt $12. For this one, owing $3 to 2 of your friends would be like, okay, I owe one friend $3, I owe both friends together -6. So -3 times 2 is -6. Selling 2 boxes of suckers for $4 each would be like 2 times 4 or 8. Okay, so 2 boxes, 4 each, so they skip 1 on the number line to 4 and another box on the number line to 8. Forgiving 2 debts of $3 each would be like taking a debt away, which is a positive. So 2 times 3 is 6. So 1 jump of 3, another jump of 3 to make 6. Spending $2 on each of 3 packs of gum. For this one, it would be $2, but it's a negative times 3 packs of gum. So I'm going 1 pack of gum, $2, or -2, excuse me. 2 packs of gum, -4. 3 packs of gum, -6. Okay, for this one, what number times -12 is -2? So -12 times -2 is 24. -24 divided by -2 is 12. Over here, we need one of them to be negative because a positive times a negative equals a negative. Same with this one, a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Drew lost 2 1/4 pounds this week. So he's 2 1/4. I got to change that to an improper. So 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9, so 9/4, times 6/1. So I'm going to simplify, and I get simplify by dividing both by 2. So 9 times 3 is 27, and 2 times 1 is 2. I'm going to make this from an improper to a mixed by dividing 27 into 2, and it happens 13 times with 1/2 left over. So he lost 13.5 pounds. For this one, which property would be the best? There's grouping symbols, so it's the associative property. So I'm going to switch these because these have common denominators. So I get 8 4/5. So then, now I can add them together by making common denominators of 15. And then I get 10 17/15, which would be like a whole here. So I really have 11 2/15. For this one, Alex has overdrawn her checking account. Her balance is a -35 at the start of the month. She deposited $12, so that's a positive, and then withdrew 5, so that's a negative. And then she withdrew 3 times this. So 3 times -5, which is 15. So we've got a -35, a -5, and a -15, which together equal a -55 because they're all negatives. If I add 12 to that, she's in debt $43. She wants her bank balance to be $150. So if I add 43 to that, so if I put in $43, my bank account would be 0. Add 150 more, I would need to deposit $193. Okay, the last one. The temperature outside is 12 degrees. If it drops 2 degrees every hour for 4 hours, it's going to drop 8 degrees, right? Because a -2 times 4 is -8. So it drops 8 degrees after 4 hours. If I add 12 to that, I get 4 degrees. So the new temperature is now 4 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, and that is the explanation of the pencil paper review. See you next time.